Greetings, America. I'm Barbara Jones Clark, Chair of the Archives and History Committee of CSK Art, the Coretta Scott King Book Awards Roundtable of the American Library Association. And welcome to our ongoing oral history project, an oral history conversational interview with George Ford, Coretta Scott King Book Awards Illustrator winner, 1974, conducted May 12, 2023. It is my esteemed pleasure to interview an elder statesman of our Coretta Scott King Award recipients, Mr. George Ford, 96 years young and soon to be 97. Mr. Ford, I know that you were an established illustrator long before CSK discovered you in 1974, and that you were an active artist during the Civil Rights era. We're anxious to know what influenced you to illustrate children's books, and how did you get started in the business?
I was not really trying to direct a career. I only wanted to use my drawing ability to just do whatever I could. So I had been doing greeting cards. Then I tried to do Black greeting cards. So this had been, and I had been able to for one job or another, I made almost every job I ever got, something I could use drawing. But my sister's a librarian, and most of my girlfriends were librarians. And so they have conferences. And one day, one of my sister's associates said, you know, your brother should be doing books. They knew I could draw. And they also knew that there weren't enough books, Black subjects, Black images, Black children in books. So it was natural when I think Lucia Engel was her name, and she was one of my sister's associates in the Brooklyn Public Library. And she said, at the conference, she had spoken to Mel Williamson because he was there with Vikings books and so on. And so she said, why don't you go see Mel? And that is how it started. Also, I didn't know that The Snowy Day had been published by Viking. I didn't know that. Annis Duff was the editor on Snowy Day. She was retiring, and it was because of Annis Duff, the editor, that The Snowy Day had the Black boy on the cover. Now, this is a little history you're never going to hear from anywhere else, because walking into Viking, they introduced me to Annis Duff, because she's retiring. She says, glad to see this Black man walk in. I want to do something else wonderful. Because Ezra Jack Keats did not want to put the Black boy on the cover. He was going to put a snowman on the cover. But Annis Duff said to him, oh, no.
You are right, Mr. Ford. Your backstory of the cover of A Snowy Day is not a piece of history known broadly to the general public. However, Andrea Davis Pinckney, a Coretta Scott King Award-winning author, included that backstory in her book, A Poem for Peter, the story of Ezra Jack Keats and the creation of The Snowy Day. In the legacy portion of her book, Pinckney states, Annis Duff pushed past convention. She rejected Keats' first sketch for the book's cover, a large snowman. Duff was emphatic. She told Keats his lovely, sympathetic book must feature Peter prominently on its cover. Putting a Black boy front and center on a picture book's jacket was unheard of at that time, but Annis insisted. According to Pinckney, the ad copy and text of the book never mention Peter's race, which speaks to the story's universal celebration of every child having fun. In his Caldecott speech, Keats said, I can honestly say that Peter came into being because we wanted him. Mr. Ford, we know that in the early 60s, when A Snowy Day emerged, America was experiencing some pretty deep racial turmoil. It seemed the publishing industry needed more editors like Annis Duff.
That's the mentality she had.
We know from conversations these past few months that your memory and stories are astounding. So, what was it like in the early days before CSK and when CSK was just getting started?
In 1962, when supposedly the first Black child on a picture book appeared in A Snowy Day, no one remembered that in 1941, Ernest Crichlow had created a book called Two as a Team, 1941. It was the story of a boy and his friend next door who was white. And the Two as a Team put forth the idea of equality and of Black worth and appreciation for what the friendship could be between two boys. The publishers did not follow up. I didn't think that the message was welcome, and I think that the idea that Black children don't read is the reason there were no awards, because there were not enough books. And that's what we wanted to remedy. That's what I want to remedy. And that is really why I turned to doing books. When this award was created by Lyndon Greer and other librarians, the Caldecott, which is the Children's Book Award with a prestige, was not going to Black people. And one of the reasons it was not going to Black artists is because there were not very many publishers publishing Black books, period. In 1965, there was one Black editor in publishing, Barbara Walker, with Franklin Watts. 1967, I did my first book called Tales Told Near a Crocodile. The book was so unusual to be a children's book with a totally Black subject that the New York Times book review section of that year, that month, at the opening of the season, featured this book on the cover and said, maybe this will be a new era. As modest as this was, it was so unusual for what had happened before that the New York Times noted it. In 1967, we were interested in teaching children, letting the world know about Black history and Black culture, and inspiring young Black people. 2 years later, I did my first picture book, Freddie Found a Farm. The story was submitted to me just mentioning a boy, not a Black boy. The author was Alice James Natchez. The publisher was Van Nostrand Reinhold. When I made the boy a boy like me, she loved it. If she had said, this is not what I had in mind, I had a white child in mind, she's a white author, things might have been different. But remember, this is 1969. The only other book published that year was Stevie by John Steptoe. So this appears the same time as Stevie. And it's a real best friend next door for every Black child who sees it. The first Coretta Scott King Award was in 1970. It went to a biography by Lily Patterson of Martin Luther King. The second one went to a biography of Langston Hughes. The third went to a survey by Elton Fax of artists, 17 great Black artists. You'll see this is Black history being done. And these are the books that we wanted really known by the general public, disseminating Black culture. The fourth book was a book about Jackie Robinson. I never had it made. Mine was the fifth, and it went to Ray Charles. You'll notice it's the first time that it goes to a biography of a current figure. Ray Charles was one of the most popular figures of the day. And it went to Sharon Bell Mathis, who was the author. I also got it. It was the first picture book also. I loved it because it gave me an opportunity to do a portrait of a man who smiled. Everything I did was to recreate the person. The person would inspire and enhance the reader. That's the first Illustrator Award. It was the first picture book also. I was not interested in it as a talented illustrator, or I wasn't interested in it as a person who won an award. I knew that this was communicating something wonderful to Black children. And that's the moment that it became a picture book award. At that moment. And I think the inspiration was not about spreading values of Martin Luther King. It was about inspiring Black children. And that's what I said then. That's what I say now.
What impact did winning the CSK Award have on your career?
After I actually got the award, one of the books that I got to do was this one. This is called Agatha Mudio's Son. Agatha Mudio's Son. An African author, Francis Bebe. Because we did not have that many books, and there was a tradition in Cameroon, in Ghana, to attempt to use Western culture, and Nkrumah was so well known in this country that he recruited artists to go to Ghana and work with the children's institutions there. And African liberation was leading to American Black liberation. All of this was in the air. So after I got this award, I knew E.J. Josie, I knew all of these people, but now they knew me. So this book, I mention it because I had the original art in August of 1974. Lucille Thomas said, we're going to open a new library in Brooklyn. And she said, George, you're going to come and you're going to talk to the kids. And you're going to show them your work. And they're going to see their image. This is the very first, of course, the original is bigger than this. So I had the original. The very first picture I ever showed kids in a classroom was this one. But what I'm getting at is the kids went wild, literally started clapping, literally started saying, wow, it just was wonderful. It's an experience that I repeated over and over and over again. Fast forward, by 1976, Glendon Greer herself called me, you know, George, there's a new bookstore that has opened in Atlanta, the first Black bookstore in Atlanta. It's 1976. So I got on a plane right there because I always had time to go do this kind of stuff. So I remember I spent the weekend with Glendon Greer in Atlanta. And Jimmy Carter had just been elected. And it was euphoria back among Black people down there because they were integrating the hotel, which was his headquarters. And Glendon Greer was an important mover and shaker in that hotel. And when we walked in that hotel, she said, this is the first year that Black people can walk through the front of this hotel. And I was at this bookstore signing books that weekend. And then that same year, the Council on Interracial Books for Children petitioned the industry to use more Black writers, Black illustrators, and so on. As you know, the council sponsored a contest. The first winner was Walter Dean Myers, and the second one was Eloise Greenfield. And you know what happened with them.
Do you feel that the CSK Award influenced changes in the publishing industry?
In 1976, it had advanced to the point where the publishers were actually publishing books. I had done Paul Robeson, and there was an actual show sponsored by the council and held at the Institute of Graphic Arts, AIGA, at which it was called bias-free education. Bias-free education, bias-free illustration. And there were enough Black illustrators, Don Miller, Jerry Pinkney, George Ford, Tom Feelings, Pat Cummings. I can go on. Quite a few had gotten into the field, and it was happening. Soon after that, the people who ran the Caldecott were beginning to see that one could no longer be exclusive. By 77, Leo and Diane Dillon won the Caldecott. I don't think that would have happened if we didn't have the Coretta Scott King Awards. So I think these things were happening in the trade mainly because of the award itself. So you're asking me what the effect of the award was on my career? Well, what is the effect of the award on the industry and on the world? Because by this time, Black liberation in America, Black independence in Africa, we have become a people who were helping each other. We had become a universal force for equality in America. And that's what I believe was the effect. And gradually the award is becoming very, very, very accepted. Black authors are beginning to think, well, I can get published. The Black Creators for Children was formed about that time. And since I was published and I had this award, everybody wanted to hear from me. You know, I was kind of the focus on all of this progress and all of these people being inspired. Burnett Ford, who became my wife afterwards, was part of this group. Cheryl Hudson was part of this group, and the U.S. Herald did. So we get now to 88 when Wade and Cheryl Hudson are trying to take advantage of the fact that we are now publishing Black books. When they showed up, I said, I am your man. The first, I don't have a copy of it. I wish I did. The first book about Africa was the first book, and the second one was Bright Eyes, Brown Skin. Brown Eyes, Brown Skin was so welcomed by Black mothers. Burnett Ford and Cheryl and we created a book that mothers will read to their children, and when the kids can read, they can read it themselves. It's just a welcoming book. The original book of Ray Charles was this one. You'll notice that it is Ray Charles with a little fancy lettering. I chose that. And it's made to look like an album cover because it's Ray Charles. Lee and Low, a company started by Philip Lee and Tom Lowe, Lee and Low, to do ethnic books. It's marvelous what they have done. They've really created a field now where almost any ethnic group can find a home at Lee and Low. Ray Charles and Jamie Foxx got together and said he can do it, and they created the movie of the century. And with the success of the movie, Lee and Low reissued Ray Charles, and it's taken a life of its own since then. And Ray Charles, this book has become a legend of success for one book, starting with the original and now reissued by Lee and Low. So that is what the influence has been on the industry. And I think it's because of the award.
You are a gushing fountain of history. Now, for the creme de la creme. We are so enamored with color and picture books today. But in 1974, you tapped into our emotions and pulled our heartstrings using black and white with your book, Ray Charles. Tell us about your illustrative process and share some of your favorite illustrations from the CSK Award-winning book, Ray Charles.
When I get the assignment, I don't know. I only know, I want to know one of two things. Do I love it? Is it something, I think that when you're an artist or when you're anyone creative, you have to think always and know yourself. No, why do you enjoy working at this? Let's say you decide, is it going to be pen and ink? Is it going to be wash? Is it going to be the, that takes care of itself if you fully understand yourself, what you love, and how you can do something best. It's not something you decide to do every time. It's something that is part of you. It's, in my case, I'm inspired by the desire to create something which inspires children to have the confidence I did not have when I was a child. To say how I begin, I cannot. I can only say to you when I saw it's a very simple text of Ray Charles. And with every text, no matter how complicated it is, it's simple. It suggests to you, how can I let myself choose? It's a matter of choice. What you love is what you choose. In his case, in Ray Charles' case, what I wanted to show the juxtaposition between the child Ray Charles, who went blind early in his life, and the marvelous person he has become. And once you begin to think about the thing that draws you, the picture ideas come to you. And the cover, for example, one of the things you do is use the expression of the eyes, the expression of the face. So you don't have that with Ray Charles. So it suggests itself, the reflection of the people in his glasses. That's the kind of thing that you can't plan. You want to show something and you find a way to do it. And you find what you love. If you love oil, use oil. If you love pen and ink, use pen and ink. There are many books about technique. This is not about technique. It's about transferring yourself onto the page. Sharon Bell Mathis is the writer of Ray Charles. Sharon Bell Mathis came to the publisher. They loved it. And Eloise Greenfield is a good friend of hers. And I had done some books with Eloise Greenfield. So they suggested, how about George Ford? She said, she suggested it herself. So when the art director called me, said, we've got a manuscript of Ray Charles. You're never so established that you know what to do. First, you look at the text. Sharon's text has rhythm. Sharon's text moves. I am preparing myself to read the text, absorb the text, take the same rhythm as the text, and associate that with my understanding of who Ray Charles is. You start everything that way in terms of making contact with the person or the subject or the project, but it's with everything. With that, let me just say that I got excited immediately. That's the first step, because I love Ray Charles. And this is what you look for. What are the characteristics that you can use? What are the things that you see that no one else might see? One of the characters of Ray Charles is that he always holds his arms up and he waves. He rocks. He embraces the audience. That's Ray Charles. Your first step is, how do you communicate that? How do you let people know who Ray Charles is? That's the whole point. Ray Charles was at Carnegie Hall. You'll notice that we're standing behind him. I am not showing Ray Charles. I'm showing who Ray Charles is by seeing what he sees, the audience. That is a 2-page spread. The first thing you do in a book is think of the book as 2 pages. If your drawing is going to be on the right or the left, that's not important for communication. The reader will see both pages. So you have to remember that the type is part of the picture. So that's why on this title page, I decided to put the title in the picture. So the impact is complete. The next picture that I have here is of Ray Charles from the front. The audience is behind him. We are looking at him at the piano as if we were at the piano, and the audience is behind him. But we see his face for the first time. We are getting to know Ray Charles, and we see him as Ray Charles. But the beauty of Sharon's manuscript is that she's trying to show how he got that way. She's trying to show him as a child. She's trying to show him as a tragic young person. So we now get to the point where we have to do that in illustration. And I remember Ray's first album in 1947 was The Great Ray Charles. And we saw his face. On the right, you see Ray as he is today, the great Ray Charles. But on the left, same picture, but you're using one picture to tell a story. And you see him as a child with his two parents. But because we have two pages, we can show the time war. This is what he's going to be. This is what he is today. This is what you can do in illustration with just two pictures, three pictures, we've just about covered it. But the beauty of Sharon's manuscript is that it covers everything. The next step in his life is that he loses his parents. In the manuscript, all that she says is that his father was died, his mother had died, and now Ray Charles is alone. And the illustrator has to choose. Take a good look. It's the only picture in the whole book that shows his eyes. To me, that's a profound fact. And all of this is about explaining what an illustrator does. And the illustrator searches himself. And I asked myself, what is significance for Ray Charles that you can show his eyes? Because you're never going to see his eyes again. And this picture, I am hoping, will convey the grief, the doubt, and the physical separation of his brain from you through no eyes. His eyes are sewn up. This is profound stuff. How do you transmit that in a picture? I mean, it's got to be there. Your passion is what puts it there. One of the things that Ray is famous for is his interaction with the Raylettes. He always has a backup group of women. This is where I demonstrate to you the importance of thinking of the book as two pages. Because by the time you get to this, you want to see a lot. And you're showing the Raylettes. This time you're in the front. You're at the piano. You're seeing it all. You're almost ready to think that you're seeing the world of Ray Charles. The type is only printed stuff, but it's part of that. A book is a marriage between pictures and words. The pictures you create, the type is there. In this picture, I believe I've just made them all one. The type is on stage along with the Raylettes. I'm coming now to the part where I have to tell you, I try to say that technique is not important. Technique is important. But by the time you've done 8 or 9 pictures on one subject, and in my case, Ray Charles, you've begun to feel so much what this character is, who he is, that the fact that it's black and white and not color is not important. There is color in the black and white. To look at this again, without realizing it, you realize he's wearing a black suit and they're wearing colorful gowns, even though you don't see color. The emotional content takes care of that. If you have color, then that's different. But I'm trying to pass the word on. There are other drawings, but finally I have a statement to make about Ray. And I think as it ends, these are the words that the book ends with. Sometimes he says, when I'm singing the blues, I can hardly keep the tears from running down my face. I give it all I've got. It is then that the heavy, throaty voice pours out of the trouble he knows. His soul shows, and people see and understand. And when he bursts into songs of joy, people see that, understand too. His voice, strange with the words, "It's all right." And they know if he tells them, it is all right. And the final picture is very simple. I hope by this time that you see that I've become Ray Charles, and I want you to become Ray Charles. It's simple, and you can see he's reminiscent, he's relaxing. He and the piano are one. And you and I hope, are one. Thank you.
Mr. Ford, I feel so honored to have been able to get to know you and your daughter Olivia over the past few months. What our parents told us is true. There is much to be learned from our elders. Special thanks are extended to Lee and Lo for so generously sharing the artwork of Ray Charles for this production. Ladies and gentlemen, applause, applause, applause for Mr. George Ford. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
You know something else, Bobby? I'm really moved. I didn't think I'd be moved, but I'm really moved. You are so good. You're so wonderful. Thank you so much.
Before I go any further, let me briefly acknowledge the outstanding work of our Archives and History Committee members. They bring diverse frames of reference to the work of our committee, school, public, university, and the perspective of book trade review journals. Crystal Carr-Jeter, Doris Gebel, Danielle Pantan, committee members Rita Aubaugh, Sam Bloom, Laura Simeon, Idella Washington, and Dr. Marguerite Worth Pennick